A whisper from the past. My dearest grandfather, as the sun dips below the horizon and the world quiets its ceaseless hum, my thoughts often drift to you. You weren't a man who spoke in grand pronouncements or filled rooms with booming laughter. No, your presence was much like the quiet, enduring oak that stands sentinel through seasons, its branches reaching towards the sky while its roots dig deep into the earth. You were a man of few words, yet every deliberate action carried the weight of ages, holding within it a quiet strength, a stillness that settled deep within your bones, even when the world around you raged like a winter storm, tearing at weaker things. It was a peculiar calm, a steadfastness that seemed to ripple outwards, touching all who drew near. It was a peace that I, in my younger, more hurried days, only truly began to grasp, began to feel, long after your gentle hand had left mine. I remember often sitting by your side, perhaps on a worn porch swing, the air thick with the scent of summer rain or the crispness of autumn leaves. You wouldn't offer much advice, not in words. Instead, you would simply be. You'd watch the world with a deep, knowing gaze, a calm that was palpable. If a sudden gust of wind scattered the leaves, you'd observe it without flinching. If a troublesome neighbor's gossip reached your ears, you'd listen with a slight nod, then return to your task unperturbed. This quiet resilience, this unwavering steadiness, was a mystery to me then. I often wondered what hidden wellspring fed such unwavering composure, such profound inner peace amidst the inevitable sorrows and daily trials that touch all our lives. You faced losses, disappointments, and the slow march of time just like anyone else, yet you never seemed to break. Now, in the twilight of my own years, as I sit by the window and watch the leaves fall, each one a tiny reminder of fleeting time, I realize that remarkable calm wasn't simply your nature, a gift bestowed upon you by chance. No, it was something more. It was a wellspring of profound lessons, a philosophy you lived, not preached, a hidden treasure waiting to be unearthed, a wisdom that has survived the turning of centuries. These were not the fleeting fads of our restless age, those glittering promises that vanish with the morning dew. These were timeless principles. They were the very stones upon which you built a life of fortitude and peace, a strong foundation against the ever-shifting sands of fortune. This ancient way of thinking, this wisdom that guided your every step, allowing you to face what came with an even heart, is known as Stoicism. A companion for your journey. In this quiet moment, as you listen, perhaps with a cup of tea by your side, I want to share the invaluable wisdom that you, my dear grandfather, lived by. These are not merely stories, but tales of your trials and your triumphs, vignettes of how you weathered life's harshest winds and darkest nights with a steadfast heart. Your path wasn't always smooth. Indeed, it was often rugged, full of unexpected turns and steep climbs, much like the winding paths we all must tread. Yet through it all, you held on to a profound inner peace, a serenity that seemed to defy the world's troubles, a quiet glow that never dimmed. You found strength not in escaping hardship, not in turning your back on sorrow, but in facing it, in walking through it with unwavering courage and an unshakable mind. We will explore how these simple yet powerful Stoic principles shaped your existence, allowing you to greet both joy and sorrow, success and failure, with an even spirit. We'll delve into how you embraced what you couldn't control, how you kept your emotions from becoming your masters, and how you found strength even in the face of inevitable losses. These are lessons not just for grand, epic challenges, but for the quiet moments of loneliness, the fleeting worries that creep in, the simple frustrations of a new day. They are whispers of comfort when the silence grows too loud, and gentle reminders of strength when the burdens feel too heavy. And more importantly, We will discover how these very same ancient truths can offer solace and strength to each of us today, right here, right now. They are not merely relics of the past, dusty scrolls from forgotten times, but living guides for navigating our own anxieties, our own moments of solitude, and finding a deep, abiding peace within ourselves. May your quiet strength be a companion on your journey, a gentle light guiding you towards a life lived with grace and enduring calm. Part 1. Embracing what you can't control. My dearest grandfather, you, who stood like that ancient oak through all seasons, taught me the deepest lesson of freedom, the wisdom of knowing what lies within our power and what does not. You understood deep in your bones a truth that many spend a lifetime struggling to grasp, that the world is a stage set by forces far beyond our command, and only our reactions truly belong to us. This was the first and perhaps most vital stone in your Stoic foundation, a cornerstone of peace in a world prone to chaos. I recall vividly a tale from your younger days, a story you never spoke of with bitterness, but with a gaze that held the wisdom of a long journey. Our family, like many in those times, relied heavily on the land. You had toiled for years, waking before the first rooster crowed, coaxing life from the stubborn soil with your own hands. You had saved every penny, every dime, not for lavish feasts or shiny trinkets, but for a simple, sturdy farmhouse, a place where your family could be sheltered and warm through the biting winters. You had poured your very soul into its walls, imagining laughter echoing in its rooms, the comforting smell of freshly baked bread filling the air. It was more than a house. It was a dream, built brick by painstaking brick, a sanctuary against the world's harshness. Then came the great flood. Not a gentle rising of the river, mind you, but a true biblical deluge. The skies wept for days without cease, and the river, usually a placid companion, swelled into a raging monster, tearing at its banks like a hungry beast, roaring with a voice that echoed through the valley. News traveled slowly in those days, carried on the damp wind and whispered from neighbor to neighbor, each telling a grimmer tale than the last. But soon enough, the dreadful tidings arrived. The waters were rising, higher than anyone had ever seen, swallowing fields, fences, and hope. One morning, as the gray dawn broke, it revealed a scene of utter devastation. The farmhouse, the dream built with sweat and hope, was gone. Not a trace remained. The angry waters had swallowed it whole, leaving behind only churned earth and scattered debris. The savings, hidden beneath a loose floorboard, gone too, swept away into the indifferent current. Many of your neighbors, seeing their own lives washed away, knelt in the mud and wept, their cries carried on the damp air, sharp with despair. Some shook their fists at the heavens, cursing the cruel hand of fate that had dealt them such a blow. Others simply sat, their eyes vacant, lost in a despair as vast and chilling as the floodwaters themselves. But you, my dear grandfather, you did not curse. You did not weep, at least not outwardly, in front of others. You stood there, your shoulders slumped, not in defeat, but in a profound acceptance of what was. Your gaze, though undoubtedly filled with a deep sadness for what was lost, held no anger, no panic. You simply looked at the swirling remnants of your life's work, acknowledging the terrible, unchangeable truth. You understood in that very moment that the rain, the river's fury, the loss of your home, these were acts of the world, vast and indifferent, forces of nature beyond human intervention. You could no more control the flood than you could command the sun to rise in the west. And to rage against such things, you knew, would be like shouting at the wind, utterly pointless and only serving to exhaust the soul, to empty the spirit of the very strength it needed to carry on. This, dear listener, is the heart of the matter. This is the wisdom that illuminated my grandfather's path, a light that can guide us all, the profound understanding that there are things we can control and things we cannot. We are masters of our own thoughts, our own choices, our own reactions to whatever life presents. We can decide how we face a hardship, whether we meet it with grace or with bitterness. We can choose to rebuild, to learn, to find a new path. But we are not masters of the weather, of the actions of others, of the grand, unpredictable currents of life, or even of time's relentless march. To fixate on what lies outside our sphere of influence is to invite anxiety, to invite despair, to chain ourselves to a torment of our own making, a torment that can gnaw at the heart and steal our peace. My grandfather, in the face of utter loss, didn't waste a single precious drop of energy on what was gone. He didn't dwell on what should have been or what might have been had the flood spared him. No, he turned his attention to what remained: his family, their safety, his own health, his strong hands, and his unbreakable spirit. He recognized that the external event, the flood, was a given, an unchangeable fact. His internal response, his courage, his resolve, his decision to rebuild was his choice, and his alone. And in that powerful choice, he found freedom. He was not a victim of the flood, but a man who chose how to respond to it, turning despair into determination. He understood that clinging to what cannot be controlled is like trying to hold water in a sieve. It is futile, exhausting, and leaves you empty-handed and weary. But by releasing his grip on what was lost, on the past that could not be undone, he freed his hands and his mind to build anew. He focused his mind not on the vanished past, but on the unfolding present and the path forward. He knew that the only true power we possess lies in how we choose to think and how we choose to act right now, in this very moment. And that, dear listener, is a power no flood, no loss, no misfortune, no loneliness can ever truly take from you. It is the bedrock of inner peace, a peace that endures through every storm, a peace that can be found even in the quietest corners of our lives. Part 2. Rational action over emotional reaction. My dear grandfather, just as you understood the immovable force of the world's indifference, the floods that sweep, the winds that rage, so too did you master the unruly beasts that dwell within us all, our emotions. For while the outside world may be beyond our grasp, a vast ocean of unpredictable currents, the tempest within, the surging tide of anger, or the chilling grip of fear, that is where true battles are fought and where true victories are won. You knew that emotions, left unchecked, are like wild horses pulling a cart into a perilous ravine, beautiful yet destructive. But tamed by reason, they become powerful steeds, carrying us steadily and safely through any terrain, no matter how treacherous. I recall a time, not of natural disaster, but of human deceit, a tale that often whispered through the quiet corners of our family history. In your younger days, when you were building your livelihood, you entered into an agreement with a man, a seemingly honest fellow from a neighboring village. They planned to share the bounty of a good harvest, a venture that promised prosperity for both, and perhaps even a bit of ease after years of toil. You, being a man of your word, upheld your end, toiling long days and even longer nights to ensure the success of their shared endeavor, trusting in the handshake that sealed their bond. You poured your trust into this man, believing in the simple honor that once bound men together, a quiet faith in human decency. Yet, when the time came to divide the fruits of their labor, the partner proved to be a fox in sheep's clothing. He vanished with the larger share, leaving you with little more than empty promises and a stack of mounting debts. The grain you had poured your sweat into, the money you had counted on, all gone. To add insult to injury, whispers began to ripple through the valley, carried by the ever-present winds of gossip. The partner, seeking to cover his own tracks, began to spread malicious tales about you, painting you as the dishonest one, the man who couldn't be trusted. The shame, the injustice, the financial ruin. It was a heavy burden, enough to crush any spirit, enough to make even the strongest among us feel utterly helpless and enraged. Many would have exploded in a blaze of fury, seeking vengeance, shouting their innocence from the rooftops, demanding justice with loud cries and bitter accusations. They would have chased after the scoundrel with fire in their eyes, demanding what was owed, consumed by the burning desire for retribution that scorches the soul. The very thought of such betrayal can set one's blood to boil, can make the mind cloud with righteous indignation, blinding one to any path but revenge. And indeed, for a fleeting moment, I imagine even you, my dear grandfather, felt that sharp sting, that primal urge to strike back, to right the wrong with your own hands. But you, my dear grandfather, did not. You listened to the bitter words that reached your ears. You looked upon the empty barn that should have been full, and you felt the deep wound of betrayal. Yet you did not allow the roaring flames of anger or the icy grip of despair to consume you. You understood that while feelings arise unbidden, like sudden storms, our response to them is a choice, a sacred and powerful freedom. You took a moment, perhaps a long, slow breath that steadied your heart, and retreated not from the problem, but into yourself. You did not let the immediate, chaotic storm of emotion dictate your next move, knowing that a hasty reaction often leads to deeper sorrow. Instead, you spent your time in quiet contemplation. You weighed the facts, not the fleeting feelings. You analyzed the situation with the clear, steady gaze of a craftsman examining a broken tool, seeking to understand its malfunction rather than cursing its failing. You considered the legal avenues, the practical implications, the long-term consequences of acting out of rage versus acting out of reason. You sought counsel not from your heart, which screamed for justice, but from your mind, which sought wisdom and a path forward that would preserve your integrity. You chose in that moment to focus on the things you could control, your own integrity, your diligence, your reputation in the eyes of those who truly knew you, those who mattered. You did not waste precious energy chasing after the vanishing thief, for you understood that justice would find its own path, or it would not. And even if it did not, your own character, your own peace remained your own, untouched by the scoundrel's deeds. You concentrated on rebuilding your livelihood, working even harder, often taking on extra jobs beneath the pale moonlight to pay off the debts the scoundrel had left. You did not speak ill of your former partner, for to do so would only drag yourself down into the mud of bitterness and resentment. You simply continued to live honorably, to labor diligently, and to treat others with the fairness you yourself had been denied, knowing that your actions spoke louder than any words. This, dear listener, is the profound lesson of rational action over emotional reaction. Our feelings are powerful currents indeed. They can pull us into rocky shoals or dash us against the cliffs of regret, leaving us bruised and broken. But we are not helpless driftwood upon these currents. We possess a rudder, our reason, our capacity for clear thought. We can choose to pause, to breathe, to observe our emotions as passing clouds rather than letting them become the storm that engulfs us. My grandfather taught me that the true strength of a person lies not in never feeling anger or fear, but in not being anger or fear. It lies in separating oneself from the raw emotion, allowing it to pass like a gust of wind, and then choosing a response that aligns with our deepest values, our long-term goals, and our quiet inner peace. For when we let emotion dictate our actions, we often say words we regret, make decisions we later lament, and dig ourselves deeper into the very troubles we wish to escape, creating a tangled web of sorrow. But when we choose reason, when we act from a place of calm deliberation, we build bridges instead of walls, we find solutions instead of escalating conflicts, and we maintain our dignity even when the world seeks to strip it away. My grandfather, through his quiet example, showed that the greatest victory is not over an external foe, but over the untamed passions within. And that, dear listener, is a battle you can choose to win each and every day, a victory that brings true peace to your heart. Part 3. Resilience in the face of adversity. My dearest grandfather, you, who could stand firm against the raging storm and tame the wild horses of your own heart, knew a deeper truth still, that life's journey is rarely a smooth, sunlit path, paved with ease and comfort. More often, it is a winding trail through thorny thickets and up rocky slopes, demanding not just a steady mind but also an unbending spirit. You did not merely endure hardship, you embraced it, for you knew that the greatest strength is forged not in comfort, but in the fiery crucible of adversity, where character is tested and hardened. I often think of your time working in the old quarry, a place where the sun beat down mercilessly in summer, baking the earth and draining strength, and the winds bit cold in winter, chilling one to the bone. It was back-breaking labor, demanding strength from dawn till dusk, carving stone from the stubborn earth with pickaxe and hammer. The days blurred into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years, each one marked by the rhythmic clang of pickaxes, the dull thud of falling rock, and the dusty haze that clung to everything, settling even in one's lungs. Your hands, even in my memory, bear the indelible marks of that toil, knotted and strong, like the ancient roots of an old tree forever shaped by the earth they worked. Many a man who started alongside you soon found their spirits broken, their bodies weary beyond measure, their complaints echoing like the chipping stone against the cold rock face. They would speak of quitting, of finding an easier path, of succumbing to the endless drudgery that seemed to promise no end. But you, my dear grandfather, you were different. You never spoke of giving up, never allowed a single word of complaint or despair to pass your lips, even when your back must have ached with a pain known only to laborers. When others slumped against the rock face, sighing under the visible weight of their burdens, you would take another swing, your gaze fixed on the task at hand, your breath coming in steady, measured sighs. You didn't see the quarry as a curse or a punishment, a cruel fate cast upon you. No, you saw it as a grand, silent teacher, a formidable opponent that, with each chip of stone, honed your will and strengthened your resolve, making you sharper, stronger, more unyielding. You understood that the weight of a burden can either crush you or strengthen you, depending on how you choose to carry it, and you chose to carry it with dignity and purpose. This was the profound wisdom you embodied. That difficulty is not a roadblock to be avoided, but a forge in which true character is hammered out. You never saw a challenge as something unfair, a cruel trick of fortune, but as an opportunity. Each aching muscle, each bead of sweat that trickled down your brow, each blister on your palm was not a sign of suffering, but a mark of your progress, a testament to your own endurance. You knew that the very act of pushing through discomfort, of persisting when every fiber of your being cried out for rest, was building something invaluable within you. It was building resilience, a quality as sturdy and unyielding as the very stone you quarried, a foundation that no external force could ever truly dismantle. You taught me, not with words, for your lessons were always quieter, but with the quiet dignity of your daily efforts, that when faced with a long and arduous journey, the one who complains the loudest is often the first to fall by the wayside, their spirit wilting under the weight of their own lamentations. but the one who quietly places one foot in front of the other, who focuses on the next step, the next swing, the next task, no matter how small or repetitive, is the one who eventually reaches the summit, their spirit intact and stronger than before. You truly embrace the understanding that the obstacle itself is the way. The very difficulty standing in your path is not meant to stop you, but to show you what you are truly capable of. It is a hidden stair, disguised as a formidable wall, waiting for you to climb it. Your life, my dear grandfather, was a testament to this truth. You faced illnesses that lingered like unwanted guests, financial strains that pulled taut as an old rope, threatening to snap, and the quiet disappointments and heartbreaks that life inevitably brings to every soul. Yet you met each with the same steady gaze you gave to the quarry stone, with the same measured breath. You understood that to run from adversity is to run from growth. To shrink from pain is to shrink from life itself, to deny oneself the very experiences that shape us. Instead, you chose to lean into it, to learn from it, to let it refine you, like gold purified in the flame. You knew that just as the rain makes the seeds sprout and the wind strengthens the trees, forcing their roots to dig deeper, so too do life's challenges make us stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in our own enduring spirit. And that, dear listener, is a truth that can bring comfort and courage to any heart, knowing that the struggles you face today are but the tools shaping the unshakable spirit within you, forging a resilience that will serve you well to your very last day. Part 4. Distinguishing internal from external. My dearest grandfather, you who could stand firm against the raging storm and tame the wild horses of your own heart, possessed yet another profound wisdom that illuminated your path. You knew the difference between the glittering prizes of the world and the true treasures of the soul. You understood that a man's worth is not measured by the size of his dwelling, nor the richness of his garments, nor the silver in his purse, nor the accolades whispered in his name, but by the quiet integrity within. This was a truth you lived by, a sturdy shield against the world's fickle judgments and its ceaseless demands for outward show. I remember, as a child, observing the people who came to our quiet village. Some arrived with carriages laden with fine silks and boasting of grand estates in distant cities, their laughter loud and their manner proud. Others, with patched clothes and stories of hardship worn upon their faces, their eyes holding the weariness of long journeys. You, grandfather, treated them all with the same quiet courtesy, offering a warm smile and a listening ear, whether they came with praise or with contempt. You did not seek to impress the wealthy, nor did you look down upon the poor. You simply saw the person, the soul beneath the skin, not the outward trappings that so often deceive. There was a particular incident that etched this lesson deep into my memory, a quiet illustration of your unwavering principle. A traveling merchant, a man with a booming laugh and pockets jingling with coin, once visited our village. He was quick to boast of his riches, of the grand houses he owned in distant cities, of the many servants who catered to his whims. He often spoke loudly and dismissively of how poor and simple the villagers were, their lives seemingly small and insignificant compared to his grand affairs. He even once, with a dismissive wave of his hand, commented on your worn work clothes and the modest size of our home, suggesting that you must not be a successful man, not truly prosperous in the ways of the world. Many in the village, hearing such words, would have felt a sting of shame, a flush of embarrassment, or perhaps a rush of envy for the merchant's easy wealth. They might have puffed up their chests, trying to prove their own worth with boasts they could ill afford, or shrunk back, feeling lesser, their spirits diminished by the merchant's condescension. The merchant's words were like tiny, sharp arrows aimed at the heart of their pride, designed to wound and belittle. But you, my dearest grandfather, You heard the merchant's words as if they were but the distant caw of a crow, a mere background noise to the steady beat of your own heart. You simply offered the man a silent nod, a gentle, unblinking gaze that saw beyond the surface, and returned to whittling a small wooden bird, your movements slow and deliberate, your hands steady. There was no anger in your eyes, no defensiveness in your posture. You didn't try to explain yourself, nor did you feel the need to prove your worth to a man whose values were so clearly misplaced. You knew, deep within your very being, that the merchant's words, born of external judgments and superficial values, held no power over the truth of who you were. This, dear listener, is the heart of distinguishing between the internal and the external. My grandfather understood that the world outside us, our possessions, our reputation, the fleeting opinions of others, even our very health or youthful beauty, these things are like shifting sand. They can be here one moment and gone the next, given or taken by forces we cannot command, by time's relentless tide. To build our happiness, our sense of worth, upon such fleeting things is to build a house upon shifting ground, vulnerable to every storm, every gust of wind, every change in fortune. But the world within us, our thoughts, our character, our virtues, our intentions, our choices, our capacity for kindness and wisdom, these are like the bedrock beneath the earth. They are entirely ours, within our control, and no one can take them from us. No matter how loudly they boast or how scornfully they speak, no matter what external circumstances may befall us. My grandfather knew that the merchant's grand houses and jingling coins were external and thus fleeting. His own integrity, his diligence, his peace of mind, his honest labor, his quiet dignity, these were internal and therefore unshakable treasures that no thief could steal. He did not let the merchant's praise inflate him, nor his scorn diminish him. He understood that both were merely external opinions, clouds passing across the sky of his own inner landscape, unable to alter the sun that shone within him. He cultivated his inner garden with unwavering care, tending to his virtues, ensuring that his thoughts were clear and his actions just. And in doing so, he found a freedom that no amount of wealth could buy, and a dignity that no amount of contempt could tarnish. For when we attach our happiness to things outside our control, be it the approval of others, the accumulation of wealth, or the fleeting beauty of youth, we become slaves to those things, constantly striving, constantly fearful of loss. We become buffeted by every changing breeze of fortune. But when we anchor our peace in what is truly ours, our character, our reason, our choices, then we become masters of our own destiny, unburdened by the world's fleeting judgments. My grandfather showed that true richness lies not in what you accumulate, but in who you are, when all else is stripped away. And that, dear listener, is a treasure more precious than any gold. A comfort in loneliness, a shield against anxiety. Part 5. Amor Fati, Loving Your Fate. My dearest grandfather, you who had learned to discern the outer world's unpredictable tides from the inner world's firm ground, held within you a most remarkable secret. It was a wisdom so profound, it transformed even the bitterest draughts into nourishing lessons and the deepest sorrows into sources of unexpected strength. This wisdom was not merely to accept the hand fate dealt, but to embrace it, to cherish it, to truly love your destiny. Many people spend their lives railing against what is, wishing for what might have been, sighing over paths not taken. In doing so, they build their own prisons of regret, bars fashioned from if-onlys and what-ifs. But you, grandfather, chose freedom. I recall vividly a season when the harvest had been especially poor. Not through any fault of your own or even a sudden dramatic storm like the flood. No, it was simply that the earth itself seemed weary. The sun shone, the rains came, but the soil yielded little. It was a silent, slow disappointment that spread like a thin mist across the valley, chilling the hearts of farmers. Fields that should have been golden with ripe grain were sparse and frail, the fruits of labor meager. Farmers wrung their hands, their faces drawn with worry, their voices full of lament and fear for the coming winter. They spoke of bad luck, of unfairness, of the heavy, unjust hand of fortune. For a time, even the most cheerful among them felt the weight of it. There was no grand drama, no sudden, visible disaster to rage against, just the quiet, grinding reality of scarcity, a constant, low hum of anxiety. It was the kind of adversity that slowly eats away at the spirit, a creeping despair that makes one question the very purpose of their toil, their efforts, their lives. It was the kind of trial that can truly test a person's faith in the goodness of the world. But you, my dear grandfather, you looked at the meager yield not with anger, not with self-pity, but with a gaze that held a peculiar calm, almost a reverence for the earth's own rhythm. You surveyed the thin stalks, the small underdeveloped kernels, and rather than despairing, you nodded slowly, as if in quiet agreement with the land itself. Perhaps, you would say, your voice low and thoughtful, the land itself needed a rest this year. Or perhaps it teaches us to be more patient, to find abundance in less, to make do with what is given. You didn't wish for a different harvest, for richer soil, or for a more generous sky. You simply accepted what was, and then you did something extraordinary. You found a way to love it, to see its purpose in the grand design. This, dear listener, is the essence of amor fati, to love your fate. It is not a passive surrender, not a resigned sigh that admits defeat, but an active, conscious choice to embrace everything that happens, without reservation, without wishing it were otherwise. It is the understanding that every event, every circumstance, every joy and every sorrow, every success and every failure is a unique thread woven into the unique tapestry of your life. And if you are to truly love your life, to cherish it fully, you must love the entirety of that tapestry, flaws and all, shadow and light. You, grandfather, understood that to fight against what is to fight against reality itself. It is to expend precious energy on a battle that can never be won, for the past cannot be changed, and the present unfolds as it must, moment by moment. Instead, you chose to align yourself with the flow of life, to find meaning and purpose even in the seemingly adverse. You didn't see the poor harvest as a punishment, but as a lesson. Perhaps it forced you to innovate, to be more resourceful with what little you had, to discover strengths you never knew you possessed. Perhaps it taught you to cherish the next good harvest even more deeply, to appreciate true abundance when it arrived. Perhaps it simply reminded you of the fragile balance of nature and your own humble yet significant place within it. You showed that when you truly say yes to your life, to every twist and turn it takes, you become unburdened by the weight of regret or the phantom pain of what if, those specters that haunt so many souls. You transcend the role of a mere victim of circumstance and step into the role of a conscious participant, someone who can find beauty and purpose in every chapter, no matter how challenging it may seem. For when we resist our fate, we are like a small boat fighting a mighty current, constantly exhausted and getting nowhere, forever struggling against the inevitable. But when we learn to love it, when we adjust our sails to the prevailing winds, we begin to move with grace and power, guided by a deeper understanding. My grandfather, through his quiet acceptance and his profound capacity to find wisdom in every season, taught that true peace is not found in a life without hardship, but in a heart that can say, "This is what is, and I embrace it fully." And that, dear listener, is a freedom that makes any journey, even the most difficult, a voyage of profound discovery and enduring joy. Part 6. Memento Mori, Remembering Mortality. My dearest grandfather, you who embraced life's varied fortunes and found peace in the face of all that came, carried yet another profound truth close to your heart. You understood that all stories, no matter how long or rich, must eventually come to their close. This was not a grim shadow hanging over your days, casting a pall over every joy. No, it was a quiet, steady light that illuminated your path, urging you to live each moment with purpose and presence, to cherish the fleeting gift of existence. Many walk through life as if it will never end, postponing joy, delaying kindness, leaving words unspoken, and living as if tomorrow is an endless, guaranteed commodity. But you, my dear grandfather, you knew better. I remember a time when you helped me mend a broken fence. The wood was old and splintered, and the task seemed endless, a daunting chore. I, being young and eager, kept looking to the horizon, impatient for the finished work, already dreaming of what grand adventure I'd embark upon next, my mind always rushing forward. You, however, worked slowly, deliberately, your gaze fixed on each nail, each plank, your movements precise and unhurried. "There is no haste in good work," you murmured, your voice a gentle rumble, "for good work fills the moment. Each swing of the hammer, each nail set straight, is a piece of forever." You were always present, always engaged, as if each breath, each task held infinite value, a precious jewel in the necklace of time. You lived your days not in a hurried race against time, desperately trying to cram in every experience, but in a measured, thoughtful stride. You made sure to visit your old friends, to share a story or a quiet cup of tea, cherishing those bonds. You took the time to teach me the names of the constellations, pointing out the ancient patterns in the night sky, and to show me how to coax a tiny sprout from the reluctant earth, understanding the miracle of growth. You listened with full attention when someone spoke, truly hearing their words, and you spoke with intention, each word carrying meaning. There was never a sense of wasted hours, no idle longing for a different past or an imagined future. You filled your cup to the brim with the present moment, savoring its every drop. As the years gathered upon you, like snow upon an ancient rooftop, you did not cling desperately to youth or rail against the inevitable changes that old age brings. You accepted the creak in your joints, the silver in your hair, the gentle fading of your strength, as naturally as the turning of the seasons, each bringing its own beauty. You spoke of those who had gone before you, not with despair, but with a quiet remembrance, as if they had simply walked into the next room, just out of sight. There was no fear in your eyes when you spoke of the end, but rather a serene acceptance, a deep contentment that you had lived a life aligned with your true self, full and complete. This, dear listener, is the wisdom of memento mori. Remember that you must die. It is not a morbid thought, not a dark cloud meant to cast gloom upon our days, but a powerful, ancient reminder. It whispers to us that our time here is precious, a finite gift not to be squandered or taken for granted. It urges us not to postpone our kindness, not to delay our dreams, not to leave words unspoken or gestures unmade, for the moment for action is always now. When we carry this quiet understanding in our hearts, like a tiny, steady flame, we are moved to live more fully, more authentically, more intentionally. We are prompted to mend fences while there is still time, to speak our truth with love, and to cherish the simple, fleeting beauty of each day, each conversation, each shared smile. My grandfather's calm acceptance of his own mortality was not a sign of resignation or defeat, but of profound courage and wisdom. He knew that to truly live, to truly experience the fullness of existence, one must also accept the ending. And in accepting the ending, he was freed to truly inhabit every moment of his journey, unburdened by the fear of what was to come. He faced his own farewell not with sorrow, but with a quiet dignity, knowing that he had done his best, loved deeply, and lived authentically. His life was a complete story, beautifully told, a masterpiece of quiet purpose. For when we shy away from the thought of our own eventual rest, we often fill our lives with trivialities, with endless distractions, with worries that steal our precious present, leaving us feeling empty and unfulfilled. But when we embrace this fundamental truth, it sharpens our focus, deepens our appreciation for every breath, and allows us to shed the burdens of regret and fear. My grandfather, through his peaceful example, showed that the truest way to conquer the fear of death is to live a life so full, so rich in purpose and kindness, so dedicated to the present moment, that when the final chapter arrives, there is no room for regret, only for a quiet, contented rest. And that, dear listener, is a wisdom that offers profound comfort and liberation for every soul. A peace that can soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Part 7. Practicing Gratitude. My dearest grandfather, you who walked with calm through storms, held your heart steady against betrayal, and greeted the finality of life with peace, carried one last shining truth that brightened even the dimmest days and filled the emptiest spaces. You understood that the world is not always a giver of grand gifts, not always showering us with riches or vast joys, but it is always, always a giver of countless small mercies, if only we have the eyes to see them and the heart to receive them. This was your profound wisdom, to practice gratitude, not as a fleeting thought that passes quickly, but as a steadfast companion, a constant wellspring within. I recall a particularly lean year when the winter winds howled relentlessly, stripping the trees bare and chilling the bones, and provisions grew scarce in our little valley. The snow lay deep, making travel difficult, isolating each household, and the usual bustle of the seasons quieted to a tense hush. People worried about their dwindling stores, about the long stretch until spring, and even the usual village gatherings felt tinged with a quiet anxiety, a shared burden of fear. There were days when our own supper table held little more than thin soup and hard bread, humble fare indeed. Yet, even in those lean times, you, my dear grandfather, never ceased to give thanks. You wouldn't offer elaborate prayers or grand pronouncements, but a quiet, heartfelt murmur before each meager meal. For this nourishment, humble though it may be, you would say, your voice soft yet resonant, and for the roof above our heads, for the warmth of the fire, we are truly blessed. You didn't focus on what was missing, on the empty spaces in the pantry, but on what was present, on the simple gifts that sustained life. You would notice the way the setting sun painted the snowdrifts in hues of rose and gold, transforming the cold landscape into a masterpiece, or the sturdy branch that held the weight of a robin in the morning, a tiny, vibrant life amidst the quiet. You would nod with appreciation when a neighbor stopped by, not with a helping hand, for few had much to spare, but simply with a kind word or a shared silence that spoke volumes of companionship. This, dear listener, is the profound practice of gratitude. It is not a shallow cheerfulness that ignores suffering or pretends hardship away, but a deep, unshakable recognition of the good that exists even amidst sorrow and lack. My grandfather understood that the human spirit, like a tender plant, needs nourishment. And the deepest nourishment comes not from what we take from the world, not from what we acquire, but from what we appreciate in it, what we allow to truly touch our hearts. To be grateful is to open your eyes to the tiny sparks of light in the deepest darkness, to the warmth of a simple blanket on a cold night, to the enduring beat of your own heart, a miracle in itself. He showed me that complaining, though it might feel like a release for a moment, only serves to amplify our woes, casting a darker shadow over our perceptions and dimming our inner light. But gratitude, even for the smallest things, acts like a beacon, illuminating the hidden blessings that are always there, waiting to be seen, waiting to be felt. He didn't wait for grand gestures or lavish gifts to feel thankful. He found cause for gratitude in the warmth of a fire, the quiet company of a loved one, the simple act of breathing in crisp morning air, the taste of clean water. Each moment, each sensation was a gift to be cherished. For when we cultivate a heart of gratitude, we transform our perception of the world. The anxieties that nibble at our peace like tiny mice begin to recede, for our focus shifts from what we lack to what we possess, from our fears to our blessings. The loneliness that sometimes settles in like a cold mist begins to lift as we recognize the connections, however small, that bind us to the fabric of life itself, to other souls, to the simple beauty of existence. My grandfather, through his constant example, taught that gratitude is not merely a pleasant emotion, but a powerful discipline. It is the key that unlocks the door to a richer, more contented existence, allowing us to find joy not just in prosperity, but in every single moment, no matter how humble, no matter how challenging. And that, dear listener, is a blessing that can truly fill your soul, a comfort that transcends circumstance, and a wellspring of enduring peace, a legacy of peace. My dearest grandfather, we have journeyed together through the life of a man whose quiet strength was a beacon, whose everyday choices illuminated the timeless path of Stoicism. We've seen how you embraced what you could not control, how you steered your heart with reason through storms of emotion, how you met adversity not with dread, but with unwavering resilience, how you knew the true treasure lay within, and how you lovingly accepted every twist of your fate. You walked hand in hand with the quiet knowledge of life's brevity, making each moment count, and in all things you found cause for quiet gratitude, even when the world offered little. These aren't just old tales from a bygone era. They are living truths, potent and profound, woven into the very fabric of peace itself. They are the antidotes to the worries that whisper in the quiet hours, the companions against the loneliness that sometimes settles heavy upon the soul, the gentle reminders of the strength you carry within. Your wisdom teaches us that true serenity isn't found in a life free from trouble, for such a life does not exist for any of us. Rather, it is found in the power we hold over our own minds, in the choices we make, and in the unwavering spirit we cultivate, no matter what the world may bring. It is a profound, comforting peace that can be found right here, right now, within you, a peace that endures and nourishes the soul. May your quiet strength, my dear grandfather, inspire your own journey toward a life lived with grace, calm, and enduring dignity. May it illuminate your path and bring you solace in every season. To delve deeper into applying this ancient philosophy to modern life, and to discover more paths to inner peace and strength, we invite you to join our growing community. Find more stories and wisdom on our YouTube channel, The Stoic Philosophy.